Good morning. We're still not used to this, are we? I'm not. Well, there's a few things to be said about John the Baptist, and we could go in any number of directions, and that's fine because John the Baptist is a little bit of a wild card himself, right? So put this mental picture in your mind. A hairy guy with a big fro, gigantic beard, poorly dressed, eats insects. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily think of him as the average church-going person, would you? Although, if somebody did walk into the church building like that, that would cause quite a scene. It would be almost quite comical. But John the Baptist is this fascinating figure to me. He really is, because he connects the Old Testament, the Hebrew Scriptures, with the New Testament. He's kind of this figure that feels like an Old Testament prophet, but yet he's around during the time of Jesus. And so he's this bridging personality between the Testaments. It's really quite remarkable. But let's do this. We're going to talk about John the Baptist, but I would like to maybe do three things. We're going to talk about groups, riff on John the Baptist, and then we're going to talk about Christ and Christmas. Okay? Sociologists like to comment about how groups are made. And groups actually have three types of people in them. Well, maybe not in them, but you'll see. Think of a group. Your Little League team, think of your favorite club, think about your chess team, if that's your sport. There's always people at the center of the thing. And that's one type of a person. That's great. These are people that maintain the club. These are the people that maintain the soccer team, the band. And then outside of the center, you've got people on the edge. And those are interesting people. And sometimes people are on the edge because they're on the way out of the group. Maybe you've seen people leave a team or a club. Maybe they're people that just joined the team, and now they're starting to become center people. And then we actually have what's called lurkers. That's the third category. That's people outside of the circle looking in. And they're saying, do I want to be a part of this? They're like on their tiptoes looking into the group. Churches are no different. We have center people, we have people on the edges, and we have lurkers looking in. In this story, I see some of these people, especially in the passages that we read from John chapter 1. The center people are sending investigators to John the Baptist on the edge, kind of asking, who are you? Are you one of us? Are you on our team? Are you on somebody else's? Like, what's your deal? The people at the center don't know what to do with John the Baptist. But what's really interesting to me is that it's the people on the edge that notice the Christ first. It's possible to be so close to the religion that you miss Jesus. And then what happens is the lurkers look in and be like, you guys are missing the point. I understand a few years ago, we had this phrase, keep Christ in Christmas. And sometimes we project that out onto the outside culture. We need to make sure we are keeping Christ in Christmas. We need to make sure that we are recognizing Christ on the edges of our society. Oh, now we're starting to poke some bears, but that's okay. John the Baptist was one of these amazing figures who was, I found out there's a term. I keep looking at Steve because he's right here, but I want to make sure he feels included while I look this way. There's a term called rad-trad, which is kind of fun. It means radical traditionalist. John the Baptist was radical in the way that he was a traditionalist. He was on the edge, but he kept his life about the Christ. And I feel like that's a beautiful space for all of us to be. Because when you're on the edge, you can have conversations with people at the center, and you can have conversations with the lurkers. But John the Baptist just paves the way for the Christ. He quotes the prophet Isaiah saying, I'm just a voice crying out in the wilderness, make straight the paths for the Lord, because John the Baptist realizes, I must become less so that he might become greater. Now, let's wrap this up. We talked about groups, the 3 types of labels that are used with groups. We talked about how John the Baptist was a person on the edge, but he was a radical traditionalist. Now let's talk about the Christ real quickly. There's something within adolescence. When you're a teenager, you're always looking for your tribe. You're always looking for a place where you can belong. And sometimes those groups that we belong to in teenage years continue on into adulthood. And sometimes that's great. Sometimes we have to find new tribes. It's all good. But if you've ever felt left out, if you've ever felt like you didn't have a club or a team or a tribe or a group to belong to, you always were the lurker your entire life, looking in but never sure if this is your team, your home turf, the place where you belong, I have good news for you, because Jesus shows up at the edges of our lives, and he always welcomes the lurkers as if they are finally finding their home. It's wonderful to keep Christ in Christmas. We have to recognize that we have to do that for ourselves, but may we also remember to be the Christ to one another, to live on the edges of our life today. Now, for teenagers, that I don't know exactly what that means. Pay attention to the outcast. Pay attention to the one that doesn't fit in. Pay attention to the one who eats insects, dresses terribly, and maybe should start shaving. Just like John the Baptist. That was, Christmas is an important season because, at least as I think about John the Baptist, it leads me to think, am I getting too consumed with the religion that I'm missing the Christ? And John the Baptist seems to do just this. Keep pointing back to the Christ. May we all do that. May we all be a hand that points towards Christ, towards one another. And may we all meet one another on the edges.
Amen.
Amen.